the RYM and the pigs. A major focus in our neighborhood and citywide work is the pigs because they tie together the various struggles around the state as the enemy and thus point to the need for a movement oriented toward power to defeat it. The pigs are the capitalist state and as such define the limits of all political struggles. To the extent that a revolutionary struggle shows signs of success, they come in and mark the point it can't go beyond. In the early stages of the struggle, the ruling classes lets parents come down on high school kids, or jocks attack college chapters. When the struggle escalates, the pigs come in. At Columbia, the left was afraid its struggle would be co-opted to anti-police brutality, cops off campus, and said pigs weren't the issue. But pigs really are the issue, and people will understand this, one way or another. They can have a liberal understanding that pigs are sweaty working-class barbarians who overreact and commit police brutality and so shouldn't be on campus. Or they can understand pigs as a repressive imperialist state doing its job. Our job is not to avoid the issue of the pigs as diverting from anti-imperialist struggle, but to emphasize that they are our real enemy if we fight that struggle to win. Even when there is no organized political struggle, the pigs come down on people in everyday life in enforcing capitalist property relations, bourgeoisie laws, and bourgeois morality. They guard stores and factories in the rich and enforce credit and rent against the poor. The overwhelming majority of arrests in America are for crimes against property. The pigs will be coming down on the kids we're working with in the schools, on the streets, around dope. We should focus on them, point them out all the time, like the Panthers do. We should relate the daily oppression by the pig to their role in political repression, and develop a class understanding of political power and armed force among the kids we're with. As we develop a base, these two aspects of the pig role increasingly come together. In the schools, pig is part of a daily oppression, keeping order in halls and lunchrooms, controlling smoking, while at the same time pigs prevent kids from handing out leaflets and bus outside agitators. The presence of youth or youth with long hair becomes defined as organized political struggle, and the pigs react to it as such. More and more everyday activity is politically threatening, so pigs are suddenly more in evidence. This in turn generates political organization and opposition, and so on. Our task will be to catalyze this development, pushing out the conflict with the pigs so as to define every struggle: schools, pigs out, pig institutes out, welfare invading, pig protected office, the streets, curfew and turf fights, as they struggle against the needs of capitalism and the force of the state. Pigs don't represent state power as an abstract principle. They are a power that we will have to overcome in the course of struggle or become irrelevant, revisionist, or dead. We must prepare concretely to meet their power, because our job is to defeat the pigs and the army and organize on that basis. Our beginnings should stress self-defense, building defense groups around karate classes, learning how to move on the street and around the neighborhood, medical training, popularizing and moving toward, according to necessity, armed self-defense, all the time honoring and putting forth the principle that political power comes out of the barrel of a gun. These self-defense groups would initiate pig surveillance patrols, visits to the pig station, and courts when someone is busted, etc. Obviously, the issues around the pig will not come down by neighborhood alone. It will take at least citywide groups able to coordinate activities against a unified enemy in the early stages, for legal and bail resources, and turning people out for demonstrations, adding the power of the citywide movement to what may be initially only a tenuous base in a neighborhood. Struggles in one part of the city will not only provide lessons for, but will materially add similar motion in the rest of it. Thus, the pigs are ultimately the glue, the necessity that holds the neighborhood-based and citywide movement together. All of our concrete needs lead to pushing the pigs to the fore as a political focus. 1. Making institutionally oriented reform struggles deal with state power by pushing our struggles till either winning or getting pigged. 2. Using the citywide interrelation of fights to raise the level of struggle and further large-scale anti-pig movement power consciousness. 3. Developing spontaneous anti-pig consciousness in our neighborhoods to an understanding of imperialism, class struggle, and the state. 4. And using the citywide movement as a platform for reinforcing and extending this politicization work, like by talking about getting together a citywide neighborhood-based mutual aid anti-pig self-defense network. All of this can be done through citywide agitation and propaganda and picking certain issues to have as a central regional focus for the whole movement. 12. Repression and revolution. As institutional fights and anti-pig self-defense, all of them intensify, so will the ruling class's repression. Their escalation of repression will inevitably continue according to how threatening the movement is to their power. Our task is not to avoid or end repression. That can always be done by pulling back, so we're not dangerous enough to require crushing. Sometimes it is correct to do that as a tactical retreat to survive to fight again. To defeat repression, however, it is not to stop it, but to go on building the movement to be more dangerous to them. In which case, defeated as one level, repression will escalate even more. To succeed in defending the movement, and not just ourselves, at its expense, we will have to successively overcome these greater and greater levels of repression. To be winning will thus necessarily, as imperialism's lesser efforts fail, bring about a phase of all-out military repression. To survive and grow in the face of that will require more than a larger base of supporters. It will require the invincible strength of a mass base as a high level of active participation and consciousness, and can only come from mobilizing the self-conscious creativity, will, and determination of the people. Each new escalation of the struggle in response to new levels of repression, each protracted struggle around self-defense, which becomes a material fighting force, is part of the international strategy of solidarity with Vietnam and the blacks through opening up other fronts. They are anti-war, anti-imperialist, and pro-black liberation. If they involve fighting the enemy, then these struggles are part of the revolution. Therefore, clearly the organization and active consciousness participating mass base needed to survive repression are also the same needed for winning the revolution. The revolutionary youth movement speaks to the need for this kind of active mass-based movement by tying citywide motion back to community youth bases, because this brings us close enough to kids in their day-to-day lives to organize their maximum active participation around enough different kinds of fights to push the highest level of consciousness about imperialism, the black vanguard, the state, and the